They will be presenting to you in subsequent strategic plan updates. So we wanted to make sure that that you saw them, you were able to see them, and they knew the types of questions and expectations and reflections that you may have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Allen.
Thank you, Dr. Shinoff. And yes, if you recall, the strategic plan was presented and adopted on January 21st of this year. So there are KPIs that it's indeed baseline data. Some are still waiting for data, as you'll see. But we do have some very exciting data to share with you, and then some also that is trending the opposite direction. But any of those, we're looking for your input and guidance moving forward. So I think a little bit of explanation regarding the structure of the strategic plan probably is important, maybe as a reminder, but even more so for the public. Unlike traditional strategic plans, this is more cross-functional in nature, to where traditionally you'd have like a pillar for finance and a pillar for human capital and a pillar for facilities. Where we have 5 value drivers, really, that all areas and all departments contribute to. And you'll recognize even our goal leads oftentimes are from different departments. That's done intentionally so that it increases perspective, it increases innovation, it increases collaboration district-wide for the overall goal of organizational success. So I'm going to go ahead and orient you to the strategic plan. If you could turn to the first, or page 2. It's our mission, vision, areas of focus, and operational beliefs. And then we actually get into our value drivers. So the first of our 5 value drivers, engagement, alignment, community, achievement, and culture. Our first is engagement. Under engagement, under each value driver, there is going to be a purpose statement which helps define each of the 5 value drivers. So sometimes, because they're not as well defined as your traditional conventional, I always encourage people to go back and read the purpose statement to remind ourselves of what are we really trying to capture here in this value driver. And then there are activities under each value driver. These are what I call the key activities, are big rocks. Certainly they're not all the activities that contribute to the value driver, but they are the ones that we feel have the most leverage. So, and that is not to take away. Oftentimes I'm asked, well, why isn't this represented as strategic plan, or why isn't this activity? It's not that that's not important, or we're devaluing any work that anybody in this room or any other space is doing. It's just that these are the biggest ones that we feel are again, driving the work. And then finally, as Dr. Shanoff mentioned, we have key performance indicators for each one of the value drivers. These are the greatest measure that we have right now towards the value driver. It's certainly not the only one. Oftentimes there are things we want to measure, but we don't have really good means to do so right now in this point in time. So these are the KPIs that we have currently. And again, always looking for your input. And staff, actually, we have a couple that we think that we would probably need to sunset and relook at that, rethink it, and looking for that insight from you as well. Okay? All right, so, and looking at page number 3, I'm actually happen to be the goal lead for engagement, and then my partner, Dr. Barrio, here with me, is my cross-functional sub-lead. The first KPI has to do with response to emails, phone calls, and other communication within 24 hours. We use the Let's Talk platform as a KPI. And as you can see, we have found some success in decreasing the dialogue age we had a total of 5,969 dialogues this year. So we found a lot of success there. However, our customer service rating score has pretty much flatlined, decreased actually. The score is not as good as we want it to be. Next steps to improve that, we are looking to integrate Let's Talk system with Focus. So what that does for us in the event that we get a dialogue, there's often times where we have to spend time and energy trying to align the parent, let's say, with the student issue or the school issue. Integrating these two systems is going to decrease the time and effort that it takes to do that. Now, if there is a hidden customer or anonymous dialogue that comes in, that still remains anonymous. Okay, so those two things are separate. The other option that we have decided to include in Let's Talk this year is the AI chatbot. Community Relations did give that an attempt a couple of years ago, or not a couple of years ago, about a year ago, where AI wasn't as new or wasn't as sophisticated as what it is now. So there was a lot of misdirection that was taking place. But we feel that
again that are maybe struggling the most with that, and also with the students that are showing the most need.
Do you have, is there any correlation in the schools that are struggling the most and the ones that are being put up for school transformation this year? I mean, I can assume schools where students, performance is lesser is probably schools where students are struggling to show up. And are there any things that come with transformation that will help with that as well?
So there are definitely there are definitely trends that correlate the for example, the severe chronic absenteeism, if it's a high percentage, with the performance of a school. In terms of the totality of the schools, we've seen exemplars of schools that tackle chronic absenteeism that are doing well regardless of any of the demographics. So we definitely know that if you have prescribed strategies for tackling trying to increase ADA and reduce absenteeism, it can absolutely work.
So that when you mentioned demographics too, that was kind of a second question off of it is obviously we've got certain areas where we know the students in those areas have a harder time making it to school for a lot of different reasons. So there are schools that we see in those areas that have success with this, and that's where we'll kind of lean on them to guide the other schools within those same demographics.
Correct, and we have a team of attendance team that we use that we have a grant for, that we're going to really tier it and have them go to the schools with the highest needs first. This past year, we had an approach where they would help all schools, but there were some schools that were doing it where they didn't need as much support as others.
Okay, thank you.
And then with the ACA, do we know if it's happening at what grade band we're seeing it the most, elementary, middle, high?
So chronic absenteeism is spread out across the board, elementary, middle, high school. Some of the factors that could play in, that we've seen play into chronic absenteeism are students that have, for example, high numbers of out-of-school suspensions. So we're never gonna not suspend a student appropriately, for behaviors, but we definitely want to make sure that we're using other interventions in place, like in-school suspension, because at least they're getting those services and assistance at the school.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next up, our key metric having to do with teacher absences. This is one certainly that from last year that although the data started strong in quarter one, as you can see, disappointing what took place in quarters 2, 3, particularly 4. Now, this data does not include professional learning, jury duty, or temporary duty elsewhere of our classroom teachers. But it does include all instructional work days. So regardless, in the few days where students are not at school, but teachers are, those days are represented as well. So one of the themes I think that you're going to see throughout the presentation today is really a focus on monitoring the data and providing the data in a more regular fashion. Okay, so we can pull this data, but honestly, it hasn't been upfront in some cases as much as it should have. This is one of those KPIs where moving forward into August, it's going to be, like Dr. Barrio said, it's going to be shared at the principal meetings. We are looking at having some sort of regular intervals with principals to go over certain pieces of data like this one, like student attendance, like discipline data, all at one time with the principal supervisors. So in addition, we are looking at potentially implementing a recognition program district-wide, but also as you guys well know, having been in schools, there are certain things that individual schools do, and we want to highlight those as well and have opportunities for principals to share and collaborate with each other.
Is there like an average rate of what teacher absence would be? Because I mean, obviously we've got the amount of time that they're provided for, their leave time and things like that. Like, what's the general rate? Like, if teachers are using that at a regular level, for them to be absent through a school year or through a quarter?
I don't know if there's an industry standard or not.
Because
No,
I'm
I
just
think
wondering
that-
how
I think
this
what
falls
she's-
in comparison
I think what
to
she's
that.
asking is how many days do teachers accrue in a year?
It's 10,
Right,
right? And then,
10. And how many are they using on average?
right, and just is there like, I'm just wondering, is this outside of what that industry, like that average would be, and people are taking unpaid time and things like that? Like, so what's the root cause of us seeing this trend in increased time, is just kind of where my mind's at when it comes to the numbers.
So we know that we have seen an increase in unpaid time across the entire organization. This classification of employee is no different. I think for us, I think what we really need to do is kind of parse this out more specifically, because what we know is that we had more professional development taking place in the third quarter and the fourth quarter than we did in the first two quarters. Hence why you might have bigger differences and bigger gaps that exist there. So the idea that we may have temporary duty in place for testing, so then students are testing with significant relationships. So those things are kind of in place as well. So I think we really kind of need to, I think we probably need to disaggregate this a little bit more. I don't know if there's a national standard by which we could actually cover that just simply because different states have different requirements. So I'm not sure if there's a way to kind of look at that in an aggregated form. But what I would like, and certainly it's entirely up to you, I think that if we can color code these graphs based on whether or not it's, you know, sick leave or temporary duty or, you know, leave without pay, we can go ahead and we can actually parse that out, because it may actually help us kind of make some changes relative to how we do professional development and the calendar of professional development that's offered. And, you know, it may also help us plan on the business side when we anticipate we're going to have the need for more substitute teachers or things of that nature, so we can actually plan with our vendor on that. Just some thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think it would be good to see it in that manner, and it might provide some trends into where it's taking place more, and then we can dial in and figure out what can we do to alleviate that pain point.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
I think that observation too leads me into what I was thinking about. We have quantitative data on this. I don't know how easily we could get this, but I'm wondering if we could gather qualitative data on this, trying to figure out the why. You know what I'm saying? And see trends in that. Is it new teachers? Is it our veteran teachers? Why are we taking off more time? What's going on? Because we can implement stuff based on what we think are best practices, but if people that are actually not showing, if our educators aren't showing up in schools, might want to ask them what's the why behind that, like what's going on. Again, that might be difficult to get, but I think that might help us a little bit too. Because right now we'd be shooting in the dark, hoping that we're hitting the target, but if we don't ask the why question, then
No doubt. I think that we would definitely want to separate out the data by leave type.
Yeah.
And then kind of dive in a little bit deeper, because, you know, I don't want to speculate, but it could be that we have an overabundance of temporary duty days being taken in the fourth quarter, because it is so close to testing, and then there's, you know, certain testing setups that we want that really can help students perform at their best. You know, these are certainly things that we want to kind of tease out. So then we're not necessarily. So then we can compare leave type to leave type, and then kind of make decisions from there. Maybe we don't have an unpaid leave problem in this job classification. You know, it could be that we have it in another job classification, and what we're looking at here is just a lot of temporary duty. So we'll make sure that we go ahead and we separate all that out, and definitely don't want to cast judgment on teachers or any other group of employees about leave, not leave, temporary duty. We just know that we're seeing an uptick.
Right,
in
and I
unpaid
mean,
leave.
of course, it's their time to take, and so for them to not share what those reasons are, but if there is an opportunity, yes, to gain some qualitative, because then that can help drive the tactics and the things that you come up with as far as the recognition program goes, or things like that, in order to help alleviate some of that possibly.
Now, a lot of the why that I have seen personally is that it's mostly mothers, and it's children that are sick. So if someone's sick and you got to take off 5 days, it's whether you have the leave or not. And then you have multiple children. And also, it's been a lot of teachers that are taking care of elderly parents and major health issues. And I've just noted a real uptick in that.
see, and that's the qualitative data that I'm trying to get at, because might lend itself
And it's
for
taking
us
itself
to
to multiple
figure out
days.
ways to help in those situations if we can. You know what I mean? So I like I think that first tier is how you said, to disaggregate it that way.
Yeah.
That'll help us.
And then dive a little bit deeper. Yep.
All right, next KPI has to do with monthly safety drills. Last year, we were at 86%. The goal obviously is 100%. And although, we didn't see an increase, we're still obviously not satisfied with 94%. However, digging a little bit deeper into this data, we're talking about a total of 7 incidents across not just our district operated schools, but we're responsible for our charter schools as well. So so our charter schools are represented here. 5 of the 7 incidents had to do with the first initial requirement of drills being conducted and within the first 10 days of school. The majority, there were hiccups right at the beginning. So knowing that going into next year is something that is going to work to be remedied.
How do we plan, since this one obviously is trending up, doing well, 7 incidents is what you say is causing the
Right.
discrepancy from 94% to 100%. When this reaches 100%, it comes off, we add a new one in, how do we continue to monitor this? Like what happens at that point when we've hit a goal?
So that's really up to the board.
Okay.
So at that point, we can go ahead and kind of leave it on monitor and maybe look at what else was on the potential KPI list, especially around safety and security. Maybe we want to do something around the safety inspections that take place from the state. That could be something, bless you, that could be something that we want to look at. But certainly, we can go ahead and back out something and place it into kind of a like its own queue where we're just monitoring to make sure that it is
Stay.
remaining where it's at. Yes. And then onboard something else that would be within the same realm. So something else that would be safety and security related. And look, it could have something to do with our health and safety inspections that we do internally. It could have, which is on the board agenda tonight. It could be something that is more related to what the Office of Safe Schools does when they come through and do their checks. Certainly, if I were to go ahead and make a recommendation, so here's an unsolicited recommendation. I like the idea of when we can kind of, when these are things that we don't have external folks with external opinions and external biases that may or may not impact these things. We know that we have folks that are required to be dedicated health and safety inspectors. We also know that we have our own building official. They are held to certain standards by the state, and then we are required to go ahead and operationalize remedies for all of those items, whether it's through us doing it in-house, us utilizing maintenance to go ahead and fix those things, and then we're held accountable on those. It just really depends on which way the board wants to go, but those are just 2 possibilities.
I just want to say, I really think the uptick here is that our safety drills have really become focused. Like now as a classroom teacher, we have a binder, a class list, there's accountability. We know where the kids need to be. If there's a problem and we're missing a child, we know exactly what to do. So
district.
And there's also, because we say teachers and staff, there's opportunities for all staff, whatever classification, to have some kind of professional
All staff
development.
members, yes ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions about engagement before we move on to the next value driver? Okay, I invite leads, Ms. Graver, Mr. Sharma up, and our cross-functional lead, Dr. Krasinski.
Mr. Sharma always comes loaded there.
Ready?
You may be best dressed today.
I haven't even doing it.
He's always best dressed. What's that true?
Board member cooking.
You got me booked today though.
So no one wants to sit next to Dr. Allen, apparently.
Oh, man.
I sat next to Dr. Allen.
Next to Dr. Allen would be right there.
You
But
want me to move?
no, it's okay. What did you do?
She likes Dave better. All right, so alignment has to do with working in a cohesive, focused approach on activities, initiatives, and resource allocation in pursuit of achieving established outcomes. So our very first KPI has to do with performance-based contracts. This is something I know that you've had discussion at the dais concerning. This year, we still haven't had a performance-based contract. It's not because we don't want to, it's because the opportunity yet has to arisen. This year, as you guys know, the focus really has gone to looking at particularly our instructional, but really all contracts to make certain that they're leveraging the output that we want them to. There is opportunity for for an upcoming grant for intervention academic program that we are looking to have our very first performance-based contract. Sarah, if you want to add on, if I'm not saying anything correct, or
So the only thing I would just stress is that when we first put this goal and this KPI in, when we built the plan, the idea was that we were gonna look at our supplemental academic programs and choose the ones that the district was gonna continue on with, and those would be the ones that were ripe for performance-based contracting. So what's transpired over the last several months is that we've gone through that initiative inventory, we've looked at all of those supplemental academic programs, and we have determined at this point in time, we haven't moved forward with contracting for any of those. So that's really what this was initially structured around. So moving forward, as Dr. Allen mentioned, we do have one potential reading intervention program that we're looking at moving forward with, and that we are currently starting conversations about whether or not the vendor would work with us.
And that's
To
a
structure
new
it this
vendor,
way.
new program. It's something we already have established, and we'd be shifting the
We'd be
contract.
shifting the contracting process.
And so have we started to identify others moving forward that can align with what we'd like it to
So
fall into that?
Go ahead.
at this point, we're just focused on the supplemental academic software. And because we've seen a significant reduction in the surface area of supplemental academic software through the initiative inventory process, and because we implement these contracts on an annual basis, yes, we would absolutely move forward with trying to identify even other parts of the business that might be well positioned for those types of contracts. Could be something that we do with term service contractors that we use for maintenance or facilities. It really will require us to. What we can't do is we can't use it for like our core reading program, where with our core reading program, it already has a lot of the supplemental components built in. So we've actually done a lot of deliberation around where to turn to engage in this performance-based contract, which is why we've kind of landed where we've landed. But I think that we're probably going to need to look towards other areas of the business as we look at other performance-based contracts, because we are really slimming down the number of supplemental academic resources that we've used in the past, just simply because we haven't seen the results in the usage that would be compelling enough for us to either want to assume the risk of entering into a performance-based contract because we don't have the usage, or we're not getting the results, so we would not want to necessarily marry ourselves to that particular product or software.
The only other thing I'll add in that area is slightly different from performance-based, but we do have performance guarantees in some of our other contracts in other areas, and we will be in the process of ramping those up, specifically in our healthcare contracts as we move forward.
All right, then I invite you to page number 6, as the next KPI under alignment has to do with the number of days of downtime for student computer repairs. Again, looking at this data, it is going the direction opposite of the way that we want it to. But digging deeper into the data, once again, there is some backstory. Last summer, there were a very large amount of computers that were in need of repair, as you guys, I think, well know, some of you that are on the board. So there was a lot of downtime then. Staff worked very hard to get computers out as quickly as we could to our kids. Made some changes. Mid-year, there was a vendor change that did our repairs to our computers, and in the second half of the year, made up a lot of time there. So, complete opposite shift from what we saw the first half of the year with the new vendor. The other kind of long-term solution that we are looking at is a leasing option rather than ownership. To where in leasing, if a computer breaks, it's much more of a matter of just handing the student a new computer rather than downtime for repair. So as you can see, currently this year we had 5,000 leased computers at 7 different schools. We are doubling that, moving to 14 schools, 10,000 computers, and hopefully more.
So I have 2 questions around that then. So the first question is, if we look at the data from the time the vendor was contracted halfway through the year till now, does that show closer to the 1.38 days that we were shooting for? What is that number? Do we have it?
Yes, it's 1.8
1.8.
now, so, and that's measured from the last quarter. So that's really when we started rolling out, shifting from, I don't want to mention vendor names or anything.
Right.
We shifted from one vendor to another one that's more local, which can get those repairs done quicker and get those devices back to us faster. So it's all about volume, getting those devices back and having them ready to hand out. The other part of this is the leasing piece. So when we did the leasing piece, that infused another 5,000 devices into our ecosystem, which many of those were damaged, had to be fixed. But we had a large number that were then ready once we re-imaged them to hand out at those schools that needed them. So as evidenced by testing, we hit 95% across all our schools for testing, which meant we did have the devices for those students, either in the classrooms or in their hands, that they were carrying back and forth. So we're gonna move forward with this newer vendor who's doing a really good job. So things that were taking months are now taking weeks to get returned, which is what we want. And we're expanding the leasing option also, because that vendor does twice weekly sweeps to the schools that are in the program, picking up any damaged devices. I will also say that the schools that we implemented that pilot program for whatever reason, I don't have anything scientific to describe here, but it seems as if our kids are treating those devices better. So don't know why. They're not the older Dell 3190 devices that have been around for many years. They're these new ones. And evidence of that is like Deerwood. They were one of the schools. I think we had one device damaged in 3 months. Just one. So
With the leased option, how long are we leasing them for? So how long are they refreshed?
4 years. That's the plan, and that's what was in the original device agreement that we signed many years ago. We had a leasing option in there that we could activate. So this is something I've been really wanting to do, and with the help of Dr. Shannon, of course, we kind of did that and moved forward with it. It's been a success, which is why we're wanting to expand it. But I don't want to do it all at once. I want to kind of do a slow roll to make sure we're good. So we started with Poinciana. Those schools were very grateful and very happy that we did that with them. And now we're looking at other districts and other schools in all your districts, by the way, for those other 7. So that's kind of how we're moving forward right now. So we'll continue that if it's successful until we're fully leased across our district. And that helps us with refresh. So now we know these devices are going to be replaced in 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, what have you. And we'll just keep rolling with it.
Yeah. Sorry, you had a question.
Yeah, I just want to know what classifies as downtime, like when the headphone jack gets broke off in there and we got to wait for that, or the screen.
No, not
or,
that. It's
yeah.
when the device is actually
I live in
damaged.
elementary school. I know what's
Yeah,
going.
I understand.
Where they're shoving things that.
Well, there was a TikTok challenge to that.
Yeah.
So, and we had several catch on fire because of that. Kids were sticking in paper clips and lead
Yeah.
pencils to try and cause them to explode. So, anyway, so downtime is, we attribute that to the device's damage. How long does it take for that child to get another device? So our goal obviously was 1.27 days. We did not hit that goal, but the last quarter we're getting there. We're at 1.8 and it will get better as we move forward. So that's the time for that device to be replaced. So we don't want that child to be without a device more than a day. That's the ultimate goal. And I think it was like 0.8 days, which is 2/3 of the school day. They should be able to get another device right away.
Also, headphones. Does this company also lease the headphones? Oh, okay.
We purchase headphones.
Oh.
We have several programs that had to use those headphones, like Amira and
Yeah.
a couple others required those headphones. So we go out and we buy those separately right now. And depending on what device you have to have a different type of headphone. So some are USB-C, some are actual plug-in with a jack on the older computers. So we have to be mindful of which we purchase.
The leasing option is something that is very new in K-12. So we are kind of doing this from the front. Other districts are paying very close attention because I think that as school districts used significant amounts of ESSER dollars on laptop purchases, I think what they're finding is that the residual value of those devices, especially at the speed at which technology continues to improve, the residual value goes down very, very quickly. And so when that depreciation occurs, all of a sudden, your asset really isn't an asset anymore. At some point, it does become a liability, and the disposal of that liability can come at its own cost. So, not having to maintain that as our own tangible inventory, I think makes things easier for our techs. I think it makes things easier for our teachers, and I think that it makes things a lot more reliable because, again, I think that there's so many performance related items that are tied into the leasing option that compels a vendor to be replacing those devices almost simultaneously as they collect them.
This also applies to Apple devices too. So I was referring to laptops, but also iPads. So we're working with Apple to be able to do that type of leasing agreement with them, which is very unusual. But they want to do it with us. So that's something I'm working through right now with them and our vendor.
All right, I invite you to the next KPI, the number of days to complete work orders. As you can see, the goal was 15 days from 17. Didn't quite meet that, but definitely trending in the correct direction. And aside from the great work of Mr. West, team, Mr. Noble, this is one of those where I think that the bringing the data to the forefront and sharing and being aware has made a difference here. Mr. Noble has done a great job with analytics. Just wanted to bring that forward.
And we all know to put a ticket in. There's a problem.
Put the ticket in.
After complaints.
All right, next has to do with negotiation of finalized collective bargaining agreements. The legislature surely hasn't made this any easier for us this year. But as you guys well know, we've been getting close to be able to negotiate not only other items, but also salaries and benefits very soon. So the goal there is state law by August 30th of 2025. Yes, sir.
Is that not October 1?
Yeah, it's not state law to have it done by August 30th. That's our goal, to have it done by August 30th. But state law does require October 1.
October 1. Okay.
Yeah, but our goal is to have it done, and the reason why is because we want any raises or money in the hands of our employees as early as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so invite you to page 7. The next KPI has to do with general fund balance. Sarah, would you like to take this?
Yes, so we are monitoring our financial condition ratio. We'll talk about this a lot more in the next workshop.
Yay.
But related specifically to the KPI, so this is a specific ratio amount that is measured as of June 30th each year. So there's no specific update yet in terms of where we are. It's something that we will be working on along with the board's direction as we work to close out the current fiscal year and move forward.
Mr. Sharma, you interested in the next KPI?
It's all mine. As part of our standardizing how we build schools and our facilities, we took the approach of standardizing our design guidelines, which essentially tells our architects what we want and what we want to design, what we want in them. HVAC, roofing, flooring, that sort of stuff. So we were able to get a direct comparison from Knights Point K-8 that was open last summer and the sister school Crossberry K-8. And you can see that the amount of RFIs and change orders went down significantly. We were targeting 10%, which we still are across the board. But it's easy to show an apples-to-apples comparison within 1 year. We saw an 82% reduction in change orders and 52% reduction in RFIs. An RFI is a request for information, meaning that something is not clear and that they need clarification. So clearly the architect picked it up. The schools are not exactly the same, but clearly the system works and our design guidelines are already starting to have an impact. We've only updated the key design guidelines so far because it takes a long time to do them. We did the major things like HVAC, fire alarm, and the MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, essentially. In the next financial year, starting July 1st, is when we will take the rest of the design guidelines, like the architectural site, plants and irrigations, and we'll get all irrigation, and we'll get all of those updated. So by the end of the calendar year, we should have a full set of design guidelines that we're going to go out with process. So we're only going to see improvements in this.
Any questions about all of that? All right, thank you guys. So I invite Dr. Peñalosa to talk about community.
I will sit next to him.
Thank you.
All right, so community has to do with building a collaborative relationship with community stakeholders. The first KPI really had to do with the delivery of information to different groups by offering community input sessions. As I think Dr. Shanoff has been as skilled and diligent in that as anybody I've ever seen. A lot of the sessions have been centered around him, as you can see. This is baseline year. We have not captured attendance data prior to, but we have this year. Moving forward in discussion, one thing we want to do is expand virtual options potentially of providing input sessions. This KPI has to do with bringing in information. There's one in community that goes the opposite way of us delivering. This one really has to do with bringing the information in. But in both KPIs, we're looking to expand not just in person, but also virtually.
I love the virtual option. I think Ms. Castillo would love it too, because I know she is one that always asks about how are we reaching those parents in the communities where they can't make it to the school.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and specifically, we are looking at sessions for parents of our new ESC hubs to try to garner info from them. Okay, the next KPI has to do with educational options. We are looking here at our Florida Empowerment Scholarship. And as you can see, that option not only in School District of Osceola County, but even larger statewide, that data is trending in almost the exact same positioning. So you want to take next steps of what we're doing?
Sure. So to support our continued growth for our district schools and charter schools, in January we started working on becoming a vendor through Step Up for Students, which will allow us to serve students in home education who are taking opportunity of the PEP scholarship. So it's an open course catalog approach where they would be able to come into one of our schools at any time to take any number of courses that interest them. We've collaborated with multiple districts across the district, and one of the successes that they have already seen is that of about 10 students that took that opportunity, they were able to capture 2 of those students back into their schools. So it's about providing these families with an exemplar experience and really showcase what we have to offer our families, so then they can make the decision to come back into our schools.
And one other thing that I want to highlight, thank you, Dr. Peñalosa. One thing that Dr. Peñalosa and Dana's team have been working on are the videos that showcase each of our schools, and I actually think even with the soft launch of the new website, shameless plug for that, I think what we're able to do is we're able to give very good insight into what that experience is like within our schools, and be able to show who our leaders are in those schools, who those teachers are within our schools, and what the student experience is really like. So I think that it only benefits us to continue to kind of just show the great examples of student experience within the schools. So then the parents, even if they're not sure, they may just say, you know what, I may send my kid to Cyprus for dance, or I may decide to send my child, to wherever for whatever, to Poinciana High School, so then my kid can get into some of that CTE work that they do. We do a lot of one-off agreements. They're on the board agenda tonight for 2 students, for home education students to participate in CTE. Doesn't have to be just that. They could be in kindergarten and be home education students and participate in something that we're doing. So I applaud Dr. Peñalosa and her team for becoming vendors. The state has recommended that, so then we can assume some of that revenue that is being allocated for family empowerment. So it's going to be, I think it's only going to continue to get better.
I have a question. How do we let those homeschool parents know that this is an option? Are you
So
going to their group meetings or?
So we're currently working through the process internally of what that's gonna look like when our families show interest, and we are working with launching a marketing campaign to launch that for the 25-26 school year. So we already have it on our website coming this fall, and then it's a matter of reaching out to our home education students and letting them know that this is an opportunity for them.
Is that also something, I mean, as students, if a family decides to unenroll from a school and they say they're going to homeschool instead, so at that point, this is something that will be discussed with parents?
Yes, the only thing is that the scholarships work 1 year in advance, so for the 25-26 school year, that scholarship timeline has already passed, so it would be a matter of keeping them in our roster to touch base with them again to say that this is an upcoming opportunity. We did do that though, we did let our families know that the scholarship timeline was closing to just have them apply and be ready, whether it's with us or someone else, at least they have that information to secure the funds for themselves for the upcoming school year.
All right, the next KPI actually has to do with parent academies. Again, this is the KPI I was referring to of us providing information. The measure that we decided, and this is one of those KPIs that I would encourage that we take a look at of maybe expanding, because the measure that we were looking at simply was the parent academies through our student services department. We actually do, offer academies like through our ESC department, both virtual and in-person. Multicultural, yes ma'am. What we're seeing though is the in-person, particularly with parent academies, although we saw an increase here, we're still talking about 39 parents that we were able to touch in person. Obviously, we have to get a wider breadth of our population than 39. So with your permission, we'd like to go work on this one and bring it back to work on.
I do see that you say under next steps, because it was a question I was gonna ask about creating it as a virtual type thing or on demand where they can just watch it on their own time. Is that what it would be? And then
Yes, and or. We were hoping maybe to garner information live, but also being able to, if it doesn't work in the parent schedule, then being able to.
it's like a master class of sorts
Yes, ma'am.
where they're,
Right.
and then how would we be able to track that they've done it or completed it? Is there something that we do when they've come to the end of the parent academies, and what does that look like?
So for potentially for virtual options?
Or like what do we do currently with the in-person ones? Do they have something that they've received that, a certificate that shows that they've, attended an academy, or I don't know what that looks like.
We were talking specifically about the student services.
We have sign-in sheets that we have there. We always provide handouts and stuff, but there is no certificate or something saying they attended.
For the ones that we're proposing to track, they are formalized as well. I know from Multicultural, they have the Family Leadership Institute, and that entails a series of 4 to 5 classes, and parents actually do have a certificate that to document that they were part of that academy. And I'm sure that ESC probably has the same thing set up.
There is a county in Florida that launched parent cafes a few years back, and if I'm not mistaken, it's still going pretty strong. So maybe that's something offline we can talk about, and I can give you some information on that. I wanted to do it when I was up here, but so many projects you can focus on like that.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, next KPI had to do with increasing outreach in social media. A lot of success here. If we didn't meet the year 1 goal, as you can see, we made progress on all the platforms we currently use. That is measured by the amount of followers, obviously. And then moving forward, yesterday, in fact, Parent Square was launched. And so some of you probably know a lot more about Parent Square than
my
I do
online
personally.
class. I passed it.
Congratulations. You're one professional learning ahead of me right now.
I am.
Glad you got there. But as you guys know, this is a one-stop shop for all of our employees to be able to communicate with our constituents. And yesterday, from speaking with our community relations team, outside of just a few minor speed bumps, everything went very smooth.
And does that offer, Parents Work offers something to the parents to learn how to utilize the new program, the same as, like you said, you took your little class
Like
training?
professional development.
Yes, I have that, but is it offered to the parents too?
So Heather, we did push out a little introduction video from Parents Wear to all of our parents yesterday, so they can learn how to log on, also set up their communication preferences, because it's more personalized to what they want. And we will continue sending some of that information out to them.
Is there a way to have, I don't know what it would look like, but at the Meet the Teachers or whatever we call them, when they're, leading up to the first day of school, having someone available at the campuses that can answer questions, or I don't know what that looks like, but if it's your social media person, maybe at each school, I don't know, and are they able to?
It could be that the social media contact is also a teacher, so they would be kind of a dual role, but we can certainly have displays, QR codes, and if there are other people
Because
that
if there
are
is, a
available.
display would be good too, even if there is something that takes them to a how-to video or something, just to engage, try to get as many people engaged as possible.
All right, that's it for community.
Thanks.
All right, the star of the show is coming up now for achievements.
Gabe again?
Oh.
I welcome Dr. Renee Clayton and Mr. Scott Noble as her cross-functional sub-lead for achievement.
Scott, you're a star of the show.
The data is the star of the show.
Yeah, I know, the
I love
pink is
hearing that
lovely.
the achievement data is the star of the show.
As we all know, it's the core business that we do. And I'd like to start off by saying, first of all, this could not be possible without everybody in the room and all the folks on the front lines. Our teachers in the classrooms, our administrators carrying out the work, and of course, this board for setting forward this, these high expectations and goals for us to reach to become the premier school district within the state of Florida. And that's what we're striving for, and we will continue to strive. We do have some, our first KPI is the increase in school grading components to include a decrease in achievement gaps. What's not reported here on this paper is the decrease in achievement gaps, and we're still waiting on the finalized achievement data from the state. We still do not have the alternate assessment results. So all of this data is projected, but it's been cleaned up really tightly with our REA department. So we feel very confident in these numbers as it stands right now, even though it is projected right now. We would like to point out that our first year goal was to reach 64 total possible points to strive for the A. And if you look right now, as you know, you were getting hourly updates during graduations. Right now, as it stands, we are looking at 62% total possible points with a remarkable 37 total points jump. So that 2 percentage points, although we didn't hit the A range of the 64%, we know that we can land there this coming school year. And we're just still really very proud of those achievement numbers. And you can see the percentage points of growth for each of the school district grade components. I also want to point out that this is aggregate data. So this particular district grade does include all schools within SDOC, which includes our charter schools. We are held accountable for our charter schools, and so we are also thankful for our choice department and Dr. Peñalosa, because we can't improve our overall district grade without also improving and holding our charter schools accountable as well. So if you take a look down at the science achievement bucket, that 0.6 percentage points, we exceeded our year one goal in that bucket. We met our goal in social studies, middle school acceleration, and our graduation rate. I'd like to point out also, just as a reminder, the graduation rate is lag data, so it's from prior year, and so is the college and career acceleration data. That is also lag. As of right now, our acceleration points are sitting at a 63%, which will be reported. And it can only go up after our summer programs. So we know we're at a minimum of a 63% in that acceleration bucket already, college and career. Not the total points, but in that college and career bucket there. So you can see the growth in each one of those buckets in the chart is repeated. And then you can see our percentage points over time. And I'd like to point out that this is the highest B we've ever been in district history. So we're really excited about that. And again, that comes from every single person executing in their role as the core business. It's not just in the classroom, but it's all the departments assisting in making that happen. So the next steps are, we recognize we have many granular next steps, but these are some very high level next steps. We have some things we're going to do to refine and activate to make sure that we are very, very narrowly focused on a few things that will have the greatest impact, so that we're going to clear the fog for our principals. The initiative review is really helping us with that. Because principals have so many plates spinning in the air and things to manage, classroom teachers have so many things to try to keep up with, that we're just going to narrowly focus on those core initiatives that we need to make sure are happening, and we're doing them very, very well. So these next steps are high level. We're going to align our school improvement plans with our vision boards and target very specific needs and drive improvement. That sounds like that's the work we always do. Well, don't you do that every year, school improvement plans? Yes, we do. But it's at another level where all the way down into the classroom, they know exactly what is happening with each student. What is their prior year score? What is their possibility? We know which kids that have a reading score proficiency, which ones should be proficient on science and weren't proficient on science, all the way down to being very strategic in that way. Simplify and strengthen our MTSS implementation. That is such a messy space, and that we are excited about. One of our strategies of having Mr. Balone as a director for MTSS and helping us really own that process and work with our EduClimber platform and helping teachers make movements with very targeted supports there, and regular cadence with the data in those meetings, and moving students in and out of their targeted interventions that they need. And then improve academic data dashboard for our better real-time analysis. I talked about EduClimber. We're using that data wall. It is designed to really move students and track students visually with MTSS, but we're also working to enhance our Power BI dashboards and bring those back and integrate all of our data points to really spend time on the action steps rather than spending so much time on consuming the data. And then the last one is identify assessment trends and deliver content-specific test-taking strategies. You might ask yourself, don't we do that anyway? Well, what we're doing here that's different is the state has released some of the FAST assessments, and we use those to our advantage. They're releasing another round of FAST assessments, and so it's very important for our students to understand how to take that test and how it's different from other tests. And I like to use an example that Dr. Evans has shared. She had all of the assistant principals take the test to know what it feels like. And one of the assistant principals in the high school level taking the math test, that is a math person, said, Dr. Evans, I just answered the first few questions. I got through how many? 8 questions and didn't do a single bit of math on the math test. Because you were able to understand what they're trying to ask of you, what would be the type of equation or what would be the next step, without ever even doing the math. Kids need to know that. Half the battle is knowing and having confidence that they can take this test and be successful because they do have the knowledge. When kids are not passing and they're proficient in class, there is another reason why, and we need to do better in making sure that we're preparing. We're not going to prepare kids just to take the test, but we would be remiss if we didn't at least expose them to what the way to take the test is. So we're going to leverage that.
How often do they release those? Is it annually
Yes.
or is it just on a?
Annually, last year, mid-year was the first time they released the new FAST assessments. So we, in January, took advantage of that right away, as soon as they were released to us. And we found great benefit of just understanding what it was asking, how the drop-down menus work, and so forth. So this next round is being released after the scores are official, in different grade levels and different subject areas, so we will leverage those as well. Okay, so then the next KPI is to decrease the percentage of teacher vacancies. And so you can see it's from beginning of the year to end of the year, it's very marginal there. We're engaging in the new teacher workforce cadre with Impact Florida and other Florida districts to focus on creative, innovative strategies for filling teacher vacancies. This is also not taking into consideration opening another K-8 school, which is Cross Prairie K-8. So where you see that little bit of an increase, we have another school that we're opening. And then we're going to continue our collaboration with Florida colleges and universities for internships, and that teacher pipeline through opportunities for teacher interns and to grab those interns while they're with us.
Where are, Dr. Clayton, where our vacancies are they specific to a certain grade band, elementary, middle, high? Do we know?
I can get that information for you if you want the current right now vacancies. I know Dr. Allen asked this morning, there's something about 153 vacancies right now, 154 vacancies right now.
Classroom vacancies.
Yeah, so that would be teacher vacancies, and so we do know that there's a little bit everywhere.
I can break it down more specifically.
I know with our pipelines too, we had talked about this not too long ago, with our pipelines, especially with Valencia to UCF, it has been elementary historically because at the time we were bleeding elementary teachers, and now, well, before I left, it had shifted. Elementary seemed to be doing well, middle and high wasn't. So I know we've been in conversations with them to open that up to that pipeline, including middle and high school, so that we can create that natural pipeline. And we just had our kids graduate not too long ago. We had recognized our first graduating class, so it would be cool if we can actually get that done. That's why I'm asking about the grade bands, because if it's still consistent with that secondary, then I think that is something that we can lean into with our local colleges to increase those opportunities.
So historically, the secondary vacancies have been in very specific areas. That hasn't changed, where it takes a very specialized certification.
Yeah.
A
STEM.
CTE area,
Or CTE,
yes,
yeah.
or a high level math.
Yeah.
That just still hasn't changed. We still see those trends.
Thank you.
And the next KPI is increased graduation rate in district operated schools. So the differentiator there is we're talking specifically about our SDOC district schools, not our charter schools. So that's why this number is a little bit different than what's in the overall district grade. So you'll see the goal was a 91%. Right now, we are district operated, reporting 91.7%. For currently at this point, but we can also expect for that to go up a little bit more by the end of our summer grads. So we're really excited. We know at least another 0.5 based on what students have already passed with the CLT exam. And it's exciting to see that the charters number is also at a 90.2. So just for clarification, our benchmark data, the 86%, it was 86% district and 86% charter. It happened to be the same number in our baseline year. So that's why that's a single score and not separated out.
And to go on record, when do we when is that the end of our summer programs to determine if kids have?
July 31st.
And then
We need one last day,
Right,
31st.
and then we have data cleanup though in the fall.
Yes.
And obviously there are some, there are things that, there are numbers that kind of fluctuate from there as well.
Thank you.
They've been working really hard and doing a nice job doing data cleanup along the way when possible. So these are getting tighter and tighter. All right, the next one is increase the number of students experiencing college and career activities from pre-K through 12. And this is specific to our Zello data. And so the goal here was to have 83% of our K-12 students have the completed lessons, and also that separated number for the grades 5, 6, and 9 to have a career interest. So as of the end of the year, our goal was 83%, and the aggregate is 86% of all K through 12 students have completed that appropriate number. So we'll keep pushing on that. We'll continue our current actions because it's trending in the right direction.
Is the 86% the same for both, and that's why you have it lumped too? Did 86% of grades 5, 6, and 9 have at least one interest as well?
We do have that separate data point. I apologize, but I can't answer that off the top of my head. Can Ms. Malfar, can you answer that off the top of your head?
No pressure, no pressure at all.
She has shared
with
it
that
with
pregnancy
me.
brain of yours.
Yes, grades 5, 6, and 9.
I can tell you that we expand the goal. If
Yes.
you give me 30 seconds, I can pull up the exact.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
and I have it right here too.
Set the timer.
I get extra time for pregnancy.
Double that to a minute, please.
Yeah, that 86% is definitely the completed lessons though.
Okay, thank you.
That's the aggregate. Some grade levels were a little higher and some were a little lower, but as an aggregate, we met the goal.
Historically, elementary is the highest, and then it declines middle to high school, but it overall tends to exceed what we set. And I think it's important to note that Osceola continues to be exemplar for how to use Zello across the state, and it is expanded across. It is expanded outside of the state, and other states are using the way that we've structured it here in Osceola. They're using that as their template to create their scoping sequences K-12. So
That's great to know.
I can say that out loud.
And it continues, yeah.
I just want to point out too that 86%, that's how many students in each grade completed every required lesson. So if you break it down by school, each lesson might have a different completion, but for the lessons that we set as expected to complete, or the state mandates the topic, like for middle school, that's how many students district-wide finished it. So we were really proud of that number.
So the 86% is reflective of the lessons that we've assigned to students, and not necessarily 86% of kids at the end of 5th grade.
Right. So I pulled data on like how many kids district-wide completed every activity that we assigned. Because it breaks down at the school level a little bit different, but overall that's like total students in the lunar districts, and then. But it doesn't include charter or because I don't have access for data, they don't all use it. I've reached out to them and we've talked about it, and then private it's not free, so they don't a lot of them won't, or a lot of them don't use it, so it is just our schools.
Okay, great. And then the post increased the number of SDOC graduates graduating with a confirmed post-secondary SDOC 4E plan. And the goal was 92%, and right now we have a 91%, although it was a 1% increase. We have not hit that yet, but that's minimal. We will have our summer grads included in the final data point. Okay, and the last KPI for achievement is increase the proficiency of first-time test takers for ELA grade 10 FAST and Algebra 1 end of course exam. And this is another shining moment here. Our year 1 goal for Algebra 1 first-time test takers was 50%, and our year 1 result was was a 57% for 10 percentage points higher than the baseline. And then for ELA grade 10 FAST, 52% was the goal, and we hit 57%, which was 8 percentage points higher from the baseline data. So, and I will have to also give kudos out to the high school team because they really, from the entire delivery chain all the way down to the classroom, really took that seriously and understanding what is the 10th grade FAST asking of us, and not just the benchmarks and not just experiencing that, but what is the test taking strategy to make sure that we can be more successful on that as first time test taking. So.
And we know this has been a struggle for us historically, so do we know what one or two contributing factors that pushed us this year over that hump that we've been struggling to get over for a few years?
It was extremely intentionally focused on, from our high school leadership team to all the way to the principals experienced the expectations. They were deeply engaged in understanding the benchmarks, down to the APs, down to the school-based PLTs, all the way down to the classroom.
Charge up too.
Yeah, and our Charge Up professional learning sessions were focused on making sure that there was a teacher leader from every single school that came to understand the professional learning for delivery back in the classroom.
I asked that because I wanted us to capture that in a bottle and replicate that for this next year. So, like, if we can drill down to what were the specific things that happened, those are the things that I would like us to, because as you know, we have been
Yes.
focused on this for years.
Yes.
So to see this jump, I think it's important for us to nail down exactly what we're doing.
Refining and refining. Yep.
Dr.
Thank you.
And Mr. Noel?
Thanks, Mr. Noel.
All right, Dr. Green and Mr. Thorne, you guys want to come on? Okay, finally, our last value driver is culture. Fostering a sense of family among our students, team members, community through a belief that everyone can achieve when provided the appropriate supports and tools.
Pete and I fought over who was gonna sit in which chair.
Rock, paper, scissors, who won? Pete won. Okay.
Fighting to sit next to me or not sit next to me?
Well, they're both sitting next to you.
I actually heard them arguing over it.
Was that too loud?
Sarah, sit between them.
They
Are you
left
okay?
me, so.
Okay, so two KPIs for culture. The first has to do with students involved in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Really, this has to do with providing sense of belonging to students and getting them hooked into school. So the measures that we've used here are athletics, CTE programs, and performing in visual arts for our secondary students. So as you can see, efforts have been taken to try to continue to recruit and expand opportunities, and we have seen growth, not necessarily the goal growth, but we have seen growth in every one of those categories that we measured. This is one of those KPIs where the sense of belonging is a lot bigger than just these numbers, but this is one of the contributing factors for sense of belonging that we're looking at.
Are there any clubs that are not represented in the different areas?
There are tons of,
So,
It's the question you
It's-
just asked, is the
it's-
clubs that we're not capturing
yeah,
here.
is it because it's too much data? Why wouldn't we capture that data as well?
When we wrote the KPI, it really had to do with what measure do we have, and what can we capture and report on. There are clubs at certain schools, but we don't have necessarily the same visibility that we have with that we have with data.
Well, the clubs vary from school and
Sometimes
it's
they
just
have
about
a sponsor,
having
clean
clean
data.
data.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I wonder though, to Terry's question, if I'm not mistaken, every high school has like a BSU or an SGA. Like something that we have, consistent across all schools, that might benefit to capture that. obviously we have athletics, obviously we have performing arts across the schools, but there might be some clubs that are consistent across all schools that maybe we capture. Because to your point, one of the things that we know is part of a contributing factor when students matriculate to college for them to be persistent. One of the top 3 indicators is that sense of belonging, which is why we measure this, right, even down at the K-12. So I think it might behoove us to take a look at those that we have at every school, to Terry's question, that it be more numbers that we have to really capture that sense of belonging.
We would have to be careful though, because we don't want to capture anything that is co-curricular. There is a delineation between co-curricular and extracurricular. SGA could be considered co-curricular because there's an SGA class, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we need to delineate out, if we are going to capture those things that are at every school, they can't necessarily be tied back to a course code, because that wouldn't necessarily meet the standard of extracurricular.
Point well taken.
Oh wait, sorry.
SGA has a course?
It's associated with economics.
But it does say, yeah, here, co-curricular and.
Oh yeah, it does say co-curricular
Okay,
and
so
extra.
then, all right, okay, so
Because I think it
We'll
does
talk.
still go back to they're finding a place where they belong, whether they're getting a class credit for it or not, they're taking the initiative to do it. So,
I think the reason that I'm glad Terry asked that question, and I think the reason that I'm staying on it is, I think the story that it paints and this goes back to other initiatives that we have around our students' mental health and prevention that we have there, right, with what's happening nationwide. If our kids are involved in something in school that increases the likelihood that they feel a sense of belonging, and it decreases some of the issues that we're seeing with our students nationwide. I think that's why I'm asking those other questions, because if we can capture that picture in its entirety, that's a story that we can tell. That's something that we're here doing in SDLC, that the moment they enter our VPK 12 space, we are trying to get them plugged into something so that they feel like they belong and they have an outlet outside of, they may not even have that outlet, but we are providing those outlets for them, and we can paint a nice picture as to things that I know that we're doing it, and I would like us to capture that in its entirety.
well, and I think that benefits the parent side of things too, especially when it's parents that have a child that they are struggling with maybe attendance when it's on the kid that's not wanting to come to school or something, or with I don't know, various, to let parents know, like, if you get your kid involved in something, you're gonna see,
An uptick in some of the issues that may be those challenges that you may be facing with your child. And to that point, I mean, all of us have been teachers, have been educators at some point. I can tell you so many things that I was doing at the high school level. Kids would come to school, my standard was, you gotta be in school. You don't come to school, then you can't do this. So, and they would tell me, like, you're the only reason I'm coming. I'm like, well, you're here, so I need you to make the best of it. You know what I mean? So I think that, to Heather's point, I think that's a really good story to capture as best as we can.
Yeah.
Who is capturing this data? Are we relying on the leads of these departments? Is it the principals?
We worked with Ryan Adams and Dr. Barrio for the athletics, Tim Burdett for CTE programs, and then Dr. D and Dr. Burns for the fine and performing arts.
Yeah, so that just tells me you have folks at the district that have access to this data. I'm sure if you went to the schools directly, you would find more. But I do understand the concern about making sure the data is clean and that is systematic, but I think I would like to see a little bit deeper if possible.
Understood and agree with the point. So,
And this is great. I don't want to take away from, this is fantastic that we have the amount of students that are involved in extracurriculars, just up in the ante and getting that deeper dive into this as well.
Okay. All right, understood, guys. Okay. Last KPI had to do with capturing data from our parents or students and staff relative to overall satisfaction. We provided surveys for the first time in a while this year to our students, our parents, and then you can see our staff surveys as well, which different platforms just a little bit. But So this is our baseline data that we've been able to capture. So this upcoming year, we are going to be able to compare this and provide you guys some, and provide us and our staff and everyone a little more insight into what maybe is going well, what needs some tweaking and improvement.
Can we also have, moving forward, the number of people that participate in the surveys
Yeah.
as well? So
Yeah.
we can
This-
see what,
Yeah.
you know,
I'd
that looks
also
like.
like to see the questions.
Yeah.
Always all to us the same thing.
We have a comprehensive report almost ready to hit send to all 5 of you, with all the results.
Okay.
Okay, with the schools designated by your districts. Okay, so that will be coming to you, just give us another, well, next week is 4th, but, very soon.
But can you speak to the response rate kind of just overall right now?
Well, I can speak to the staff survey,
Yeah.
I can't speak to the other two, but the staff survey was pretty low compared to some other types of surveys we've done in the past.
What's low?
The return rate.
Yeah,
Return
I know what
response
the
rate.
return rate is. Tell me what the number is for return.
Oh,
It was less than 20%.
yeah.
Okay.
Close to 20.
That's actually, I know it's low, but that's actually pretty common for all surveys. In general, 20% is actually not as low as you might think.
Right, but I think that in the past, we've been able to find ways to encourage more staff to participate in those surveys because it was different types of a platform. So,
So 20% actually is the minimum for
good data.
when we go through certification as a district. So if we're under 20, we really need to be over 20 and probably closer to 30. Because when we go in to actually get our accreditation, do our reaccreditation, that's going to be a required threshold. So
So we are looking at the timeliness as well as the time of year to try to get this out to increase response rates. Also the marketing, I think there's some opportunity there of us working with the community relations team to put it out and make it more advertised and more encouraged. Okay, are there any questions about culture? And if I may, I'd just like to make a couple final comments. You guys are fine. I just want to acknowledge everybody that's in the room. Although they didn't get the opportunity, or many of them didn't get the opportunity to speak to nuanced or granular information about their areas of expertise, these are the folks that do the work and lead the work in our school district that we talked about here. So I just want to say thank you guys very much.
You see how Paula jumps?
Not ready.
That's what I've been looking for.
I was not ready for that. Okay, and
Break you up too?